Op-ed columnist: Can Republicans escape Trump in 2020? It has been 37 years since the last time an incumbent president drew a serious primary challenger, Ted Kennedy against Jimmy Carter, and 25 years since Pat Buchanan made noise as a protest candidate in New Hampshire against George H.W. Bush. But if someone who had slept through the 2016 campaign were suddenly awakened and given a few key facts about the state of Donald Trump's administration, they would instantly suggest that he should expect not just a Republican challenger in 2020, but one with decent prospects of success. Those facts start with Trump being reduced to a 38% approval rating just 9 months into his presidency, despite solid economic trends and no foreign crises worse than saber rattling. They include the ongoing investigation into his campaign associates' ties to Russia, which has already produced indictments, and his Carteresque failures on domestic policy, despite Republican control of Congress. And they include the quiet fear and loathing Trump continues to inspire among Republican elites, including the former Republican president who recently slammed him by implication, and the 2 Republican senators who just questioned his fitness for his office. But unlike our fictional Rip Van Winkle, we were all awake in 2016, and so this litany of weaknesses is not enough to vindicate Matt Bai, the longtime political correspondent, who recently called a serious primary challenge inevitable. Instead, the experience of 16 points to a different interpretation of the facts that having failed to stop Trump when he was eminently beatable, the ranks of Republican politicians are unlikely to throw up a serious challenger now that he has consolidated partisan support, which he certainly has done. Trump's unpopularity is stark, but not among his party's voters. His approval ratings with Republicans have lost a few points off their peak, but they are still stable at about 80%. And one of the striking features of Trump's support is that he seems to have consolidated especially the Republican voters who once were most resistant to his charms, not the populists and nationalists and celebrity-struck centrists, but the ideological conservatives and party loyalists who probably mostly voted for Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz. In a big new Pew Research slicing and dicing of the American electorate, it is these voters, the core conservatives, who give Trump the highest approval ratings, higher than what Pew calls country first and market skeptic Republicans, the groups that you naturally associate with Trump's populist campaign. The fact that Trump has tried to govern as more of a conventional conservative than a populist is probably one reason the core now supports him so steadfastly. By letting Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan have their way, however unsuccessfully, on policy detail, he's weakened any appeal to the center he once had, but also sealed partisan loyalties and protected his right flank. The same goes for his promise-keeping, to date, with his religious conservative supporters. Church-going evangelicals, in particular, were quite skeptical of his primary campaign. But now they seem to have accepted a transactional relationship, telling themselves "in Pence we trust." But the biggest reason for Trump's support from core Republicans is likely the simple pull of partisanship. When he wasn't yet the face of the party, they found various principled and practical reasons to oppose him. But now that he's their Republican president, all those doubts seem irrelevant, and identifying as a partisan means identifying with him. This is a difficult environment in which to imagine a primary challenger flourishing. Indeed, it leaves the most common type of anti-Trump Republican politician, the Jeff Flake sort who imagine themselves the tribunes of a more principled and ideologically consistent conservatism, without any obvious constituency at all, since the supposedly principled and ideologically consistent conservative voters are now the heart of Trump's support. I still think somebody should primary the president, both as a protest against his unfitness and a means of beginning the necessary debate within the party about how its future leaders, the Tom Cotton-Nikki Haley ticket or the Ivanka Rubio duumvirate, might make conservatism great again. But no rising figure in the GOP is likely to consider sacrificing their career to make a protest or start an intellectual debate, leaving the task to retirees and elder statesmen, to a Flake or a Bob Corker or a John Kasich, or even a Mitt Romney. And there is every reason to think that most of them would demur as well, and that the inevitable challenger will look more like the third-party challengers of 2016, an Evan McMullin or a Gary Johnson, or some foolhardy never-Trump pundit drafted into the lists. However, it would also be a mistake to